You know that feeling when you're super deep into studying one thing, and then, out of nowhere, something completely different just cracks it wide open? It's this incredible aha moment, right? Well, that's exactly what happened here. Imagine someone totally immersed in the deep, complex world of Nichiren Buddhism, just casually listening to a podcast about Celtic Christianity. And what they heard wasn't just, kind of similar. It was a perfect echo, a mirror image of the very ideas they were grappling with. It's just wild.
So that sets up this amazing puzzle, doesn't it? How on earth could these two traditions, separated by a whole lot of time and space, be saying the exact same thing at their core? Okay, let's really get into this, because it's fascinating.
All right, so the key to unlocking this whole thing, it comes from a place you probably wouldn't expect. We're talking about the brilliant 20th century French philosopher and mystic Simone Weil. And it all boils down to this one single, incredibly powerful phrase she came up with.
So Weil talks about this idea she calls the efficacy of desire. And what she's saying is that our deepest, most profound longing, it's not just passive wishing, it's effective. It actually does something. Think of it like a kind of spiritual magnetism. The very act of getting in touch with that deep yearning actually pulls what you're yearning for towards you. It's a force, not just a feeling.
Now, if you're steeped in Buddhist texts, hearing this idea from a Western philosopher, it's like a lightning strike. It's a total game changer, because it immediately brings to mind these specific verses from one of the most important scriptures in Mahayana Buddhism, the Lotus Sutra.
See, the sutra says the Buddha appears, but not because someone performed the perfect ritual or said the right magic words. No, the Buddha appears when people yearn with their entire being, when they look up with thirsting hearts. That yearning, that deep, heartfelt wish, that's the trigger. The yearning itself is what makes it happen.
And right there, that's our first huge connection. You've got a 20th century philosopher from France on one hand and an ancient Eastern scripture on the other, and they're both describing the exact same spiritual mechanic. They're saying that your deepest desire and its fulfillment, they're not separate things, one after the other. They happen together in the same moment.
Okay, but the story gets even deeper. Let's jump forward to 13th century Japan, to a monk named Nichiren. He founded a whole school of Buddhism, and he took this very idea we're talking about, and he put it right at the absolute center of everything.
For Nichiren, that line from the Lotus Sutra, single-mindedly desiring to see the Buddha, that wasn't just some nice, flowery poetry. To him, it was a practical, step-by-step instruction manual for enlightenment. This was the key. This was the phrase that unlocked it all.
And this is where it gets really, really cool. Nichiren basically reveals a hidden code inside that sentence. He breaks down the phrase, single-mindedly desiring to see the Buddha. And get this, he shows how each part of that phrase corresponds perfectly to the syllables of the chant that is central to his practice, Myoho Renge Kyo, which, by the way, is just the Japanese title of the Lotus Sutra.
So what does that mean? The crucial point is this. The chanting is the yearning. They're the same thing. The sound you're making when you chant isn't some prayer you're sending out to a far-off God. No, it's the sound of your own inner awakened self, your Buddha nature, calling out to itself.
And this whole idea is perfectly wrapped up in the very first word of the full chant, Namu. Namu means devotion. It means surrender. It's basically the sound of what Simone Weil was talking about. It's the sound of that deep, forward-leaning longing, a longing that, in the very moment it reaches out, discovers it was already there.
Okay, so let's circle all the way back to where we started, that podcast on Celtic Christianity, because you're about to see how this exact same idea of an active, powerful yearning shows up, just using a completely different vocabulary.
So, the Celtic tradition has this beautiful concept of thin places, spots like the Scottish island of Iona, where the boundary between our world and the divine feels, thin. But here's the kicker. It's not that the location itself is magical. It's that generations of pilgrims, with all their devotion and longing, have worn that veil thin. And that is the exact same idea as the Buddhist's place of awakening. It tells us that any place can become sacred if we practice there with a sincere heart. We don't find these places, we make them with our yearning.
And this connection gets even more personal, and maybe more relatable, when we look at individual experiences. The Scottish poet Edwin Muir, for instance, his very first memory was just lying there, watching a beam of light. He described it as a moment outside of time, just pure awareness.
And then, on that same podcast, another person, Cami Twilling, shared an almost identical memory from her childhood, just lying on the carpet in a sunbeam, in a state of pure, thoughtless presence. It's just being. It's a beautiful reminder of this natural, quiet, contemplative instinct that seems to be built into us.
You see, these aren't just cute childhood anecdotes. From a Buddhist perspective, these are direct experiences of what Nichiren called myo, the mysterious, wondrous, impossible to describe nature of reality itself. In this sense, light isn't just a symbol for something else. It is the language of reality, speaking directly to us.
Okay, wow. So we've jumped from 20th century France to 13th century Japan to ancient Celtic spirituality. Let's pull all these threads together now and look at this single powerful insight that they're all pointing towards.
So you have Simone Weil, the Lotus Sutra, Nichiren, the Celtic tradition, even these personal memories of light. All these different voices from totally different worlds are saying the same thing. And what they're saying is that reality, it's not indifferent, it's not deaf, it actually responds to our sincere, heartfelt yearning. The fact that the same idea pops up again and again independently across cultures, that's got to tell us something really fundamental about who we are.
And that brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. What this all shows us is that the spiritual path, it might not be about this long, hard struggle to find something that's missing. Maybe it's just about remembering a truth that's already inside us, a truth that's always been there, accessible to absolutely anyone anywhere, just through the power of our own sincere desire.
That's a pretty powerful shift in perspective, isn't it? It suggests that maybe what we're searching for isn't out there somewhere. It's right here, just waiting to be noticed, waiting to be activated by our own deepest longing. So it kind of leaves you with a question to ponder, right? If your yearning is the key, what truth is it waiting to unlock inside of you?